Hello, in this lesson we're going to discuss some key ideas in the philosophy of Thomas Hobbes. He posed an all-important idea, that of the state of nature, and a sort of hypothetical social contract that might arise out of it. So, in this lesson we'll be talking about some of the foundations of what is called social contract theory. In large part, we'll be following up on some key ideas we explored in connection with the prisoner's dilemma in a previous lesson. Hobbes's notion of a state of nature is that of a society with no government, no central authority, no body of laws, and certainly no one to enforce those laws. What would life be like if there were no government, no courts, and no police? For starters, we could understand Hobbes's central question in those terms today. First off, we should observe it. It's likely that there's no one person that's so powerful that others are not a threat to him or her. What that would mean is that there's nobody who, in the state of nature, could just emerge as someone so dominant that they could declare themselves king or emperor. Also, a realistic assumption would be that people, just as in our society, have common goals or desires. In the state of nature, you're going to find individuals, parties who compete with each other to satisfy these goals. However, with no institutions of government, no laws, no authority, there might not be much to keep this competition in check, to keep it a healthy competition. Such competition, among other things, might lead people to literally attack each other out of fear. Competition for resources, and competition for resources that might already be in the possession of one party or another. People might attack others just for the fun of it. What's to rule that out in a society with no laws, no police? Indeed, for quite a few reasons. Hobbes believes that where there is no superior power that can keep people in awe, people are likely to be at war with each other, where war consists of either open fighting or hostility. That is to say, as Hobbes understands it, it's only that government, that supreme power, that keeps the peace, the domestic peace. In this constant state of war, moreover, there's not going to be industry, construction, commerce, and culture. Most people will live in fear. Why make the effort? Why try to develop a business? And so on, if in fact there's always this threat that all your efforts will be lost in this war. Most people will live in fear. In short, life will be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. That's a very famous quote of Hobbes, and that about sums up his vision of this state of nature, this society with no government and no law. Further, he wants to tell us that those people existing in this state of nature aren't going to have a notion of justice, not a relevant one anyway. In this state of existence, you might say, might makes right. Force and fraud are the two cardinal virtues. That's how you get ahead, and there's nothing to be gained by acting as a just person. If anything, if you try to be virtuous in that sense, you're likely to be taken advantage of or attacked. He wants to say, for this reason, that in the state of nature, each individual really has unlimited liberty. That in practice, you're not actually free to do many different things because they'll be so dangerous. But you have unlimited liberty in the sense that you don't have any obligations to other people. That's to say, you are free to kill other people if you can. You are free to steal from other people if you can. One may do whatever one pleases, since one has no obligation to others. Now, what everything we just discussed amounts to is that the state of nature is a pretty miserable existence for just about everyone. No one wants to be in that state of nature. In large part because, like the prisoner's dilemma we recently studied, most rational decisions within that state of nature would tend to lead to a worse outcome for everyone. Wouldn't it be great in that state of nature if people could just reach some sort of understanding? I won't attack you and you won't attack me. If they could only all abide by that, their life prospects would be much better. However, even if each of them field such offers, people want to offer peace with each other, it turns out that it may not be entirely rational to observe that peace. So why don't we look at a matrix similar to the one we considered in connection with the prisoner's dilemma? Here, J and K are not fellow prisoners being interrogated by the police, but they are neighbors in this lawless society. They have no reason to trust each other. They fear that the other might attack in order to take property or increase their own security. But each of them has a choice when it comes to trying to manage this tense situation. Here the choices are: take a peaceful stance or an aggressive stance. Now, the thinking is that if both parties take aggressive stances, then they are unlikely to collapse into violence. If they can both be peaceful, then there's a pretty good chance that they'll both prosper in the long run. And that's what we see here in this first square, where J and K both make choice A and have a peaceful, take peaceful stances. We could say that this is an assumption, of course, but we're saying here that they each have a 90% chance of survival. If they both take an aggressive stance, each of them only has a 40% chance of survival. Here's where it gets more interesting. If one party takes a peaceful stance while the other takes an aggressive stance, then the peaceful one is at a supreme disadvantage. Choice A, or I'm sorry, if choice A is taken by J, and K takes choice B, then J has a 25% chance of survival. K has a 95% chance of survival. One party, the more aggressive one, is going to take advantage of the other one being peaceful, attack in the dead of night, or whatever. Why would they do that? Why does the reverse hold when each of them makes the opposite choice? Well, one might be taking a peaceful stance, but for all the other person knows, that person's just trying to lull them into a sense of complacency. So J is thinking that if K is taking a peaceful stance, that the rational thing for them, because it increases their chances of survival, is to attack, to be aggressive. If, on the other hand, K is taking an aggressive stance himself, then the rational thing to do is to be aggressive as well. So we see the same sort of dominant strategy in this state of nature where neither party has any sort of assurance that the other one is going to abide by any kind of agreement or help to maintain the peace for very long. The rational thing to do is to be aggressive, but that makes everyone worse off than they could otherwise be, as you can see in this square compared to this one. Needless to say, nearly everybody in this state of nature would want out. By that we mean they would like to have some sort of arrangement where there could be a guaranteed, sustained peace. Hobbes discusses this in connection with these ideas of his that he calls rules of reason. These reasons suggest what he calls convenient articles of peace. The rules we might live by, basically amounting to you don't hurt me and I don't hurt you. We live in an arrangement where we can expect security day to day. It's only reasonable for people to want to seek out peace in such situations. Now, when peace is possible and desired by many, it's understood that's going to involve giving up certain liberties. Part of this unlimited liberty we spoke of before, that if in fact in this state of nature I have the right to harm others, because why not, that's going to be a liberty that I'll surrender. So you might expect people to be willing to move out of a state of nature by each agreeing to surrender their rights to harm others. Now, one of the most important elements of this, people in this state of nature who might see a path towards peace would recognize that there needs to be a party that is capable of enforcing an agreement through the threat of force or whatever it takes to maintain this security, to maintain this ongoing peace. If the state of nature involves conditions where each party actually finds it in their rational self-interest to be aggressive, when all parties recognize that, and then they're likely to wind up in that position. Remember that bottom right square where everyone faces a less than ideal outcome. They'll recognize the importance of a third party that could enforce a peace agreement, a peace contract, if you will, so that everybody gets to that upper right-hand box where everyone has a reasonable guarantee of security and a good chance at a long and comfortable life. That's what the Leviathan, or government, is required to enforce. What we've just described is a so-called social contract approach to ethics, an approach to solving moral problems by appealing to the notion of a social contract. So beginning with the question, why should people obey the law? Why should people refrain from attacking their neighbors and others, stealing from them and harming from them? One answer, one idea here is that this is the sort of thing we expect of each other as moral obligations, because it's just what we would agree to have in a situation where we didn't have it. This is the sort of, put another way, these are the terms of an agreement that rational people would abide by. So in that sense, it's a social contract. This represents an entirely different tradition, one that stands apart in important ways from utilitarianism and Kantianism, which we've studied. Social contract theory then offers the principle that the morally right actions or rules are those that would satisfy the terms of an agreement that people would agree upon under certain hypothetical conditions. No one is actually saying that the state of nature, as we've described it, did exist at some point in recent history or history as well. Rather, it's a device, a thought experiment, if you will, that helps us to get at the sorts of terms for an agreement that we could all live by, that we would want. So, as we move on to other topics, we'll consider whether looking at certain moral obligations as terms of a social contract, a rational agreement, might be helpful. So we'll leave it at that for now. We'll move on to that other topic soon.